which was sort of like an introduction to this whole pastime, um, wherein this. So this pastime is a big one. It involves various personalities. One, the two. Yes, Krishnan Prabhu, you were saying something.
Oh, no, no. I was just raising my hand for reading, Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
I'll lower it now.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. So the 22nd chapter kind of introduces Kardam Muni, and so Kardam Muni is said to have been born from the mind of Brahmaji. So he's a great personality, and he was also tasked with the seva of increasing the progeny, which also came up during the last discussion. And one of the important themes that we discussed in the last discussion was despite seeing the Lord face to face. So Kardamuni, it is said that this is Satya Yuga that is going on, and the Yuga Dharma that time is meditation on the Supreme Lord, meditation on the Supreme Lord Vishnu with love and devotion. So Kardamuni performs this meditation, these austerities for many thousands of years, and he finally sees the Lord face to face. And even after seeing the Lord face to face, he expresses his desire to get married, to get a good wife, and whatnot. So we were discussing how last time how contrasting this with Dhruv Maharaj's case in which Dhruv Maharaj, despite, I mean, he saw the Lord face to face after the austerities in 6 months, but when the Lord came in front of him, he said, I don't want anything. Although I did start with wanting a kingdom greater than my father's, but um, now I don't want anything. Now I've received you, my Lord. I have attained you. So why do I need anything else? So we were contrasting that with Kardam Muni, who, despite seeing the Lord face to face, he is expressing his desire to the Lord to get married to a suitable wife, and we discussed that at length last time. But in any case, so what happens is the Lord grants him his desire. The Lord says, "Yes, your desire is, tathastu. Your desire will be fulfilled, and soon you will marry a very nice girl, right? And that girl is none other than Devahūti. Now, Devahūti's parentage is also not ordinary. She is the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. So, Swayambhuva Manu is one of the Manus. So, within one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus that rule over mankind. So, Swayambhuva Manu is one of them, and he's an exemplary personality actually. So, Priyavrat, Uttanpad, and Devahūti are his children. And we'll see it in today's section how in his Grihastashram, he kept the Lord in the center and lived a very amazing Krishna conscious life in Grihastashram. Swayambhuva Manu, and finally went back to Godhead also. So, yeah, with that quick background in mind, we'll begin reading today's verses. So, let me share my screen, just one sec. Google Chrome. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me share my screen now, and now devotees can raise their hands. Yes, Krishnan Prabhu, you can start.
How many verses, Prabhuji?
Oh, yes. So today it's a rather long section. So although the number of verses are 96 in total, like we are doing two chapters, so 39 and 57, there are 96 verses. But a lot of the verses are very short. Uh, so yeah, 96, and let's have four devotees. So 24 verses each.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent, and the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. For the protection of the Brahmanas, The thousand-legged Supreme Being created us, the Kshatriyas, from his 1,000 arms. Hence, the Brahmanas are said to be his heart and the Kshatriyas his arms. That is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves. And the Lord himself, that is why Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves. And the Lord himself, who is both the cause and the effect, is yet immutable, protects them through each other. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you, for your lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched my head the blessed dust of your feet. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. O great sage, graciously be pleased to listen to the prayer of my humble self, for my mind is troubled by affection for my daughter. My daughter is the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapada. She is seeking a suitable husband in terms of age, character, and good qualities. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. Therefore, please accept her, O chief of Brahmanas, for I offer her with faith that she is in every respect fit to be your wife and take charge of your household duties. To deny an offering that has come of itself is not commendable, even for one who is absolutely free of all attachment, much less one addicted to sensual pleasure. One who rejects an offering that comes on its own accord, but later begs a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. Swayambhuva Manu continued, O wise man, I heard that you are prepared to marry. Please accept her hand, which is being offered to you by me, since you have not taken a vow of perpetual celebrity. The great sage replied, Certainly I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore, our marriage according to the Vedic system can take place. Let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who would not accept her hand? She is beautiful that by her bodily luster alone, she is so beautiful that by her bodily luster alone, she excels the beauty of her ornaments. I have heard that Visvavasu, the great Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with a ball on the roof of the palace. For she was indeed beautiful with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro. What wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and the sister of Uttanapada? Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune even cannot perceive her, yet she has come on her own accord to seek my hand. Therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free of envy. The highest authority for me is the is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whom this wonderful creation emanates and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world. Sri Maitreya said, O great warrior Vidura, the sage Kardama said this much only and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus in his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahūti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. After having unmistakably known the decision of the queen as well as that of Devahūti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues were equaled by hers. Empress Satarupa lovingly gave her most valuable presents suitable for the occasions, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles in dowry to the bride and bridegroom. Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhuva Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Soham Prabhu, you can complete this chapter and read 9 verses from the next one.
Okay, Prabhu.
Sorry, yeah.
The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter. Therefore, tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, My dear mother, my dear daughter. After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, following by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seer's beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. The city of Barhishmati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. Manu spread a seed of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. Having entered the city of Barhishmati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles contrary to the process of religion. Celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor, and early in the morning every day he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart. Thus, Swayambhuva Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna conscious atmosphere. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the four ages. 71, uh, yeah, 71 into
4 lakh,
43,
43 lakh
oh
20,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
43 lakh 20,000 years. Always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus, he transcended the three destinations. Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures? In reply to questions asked by certain sages, he, Swayambhuva Manu, out of compassion for all living entities, taught the diverse sacred duties of men in general and the different varnas and ashramas. I have spoken to you of the wonderful character of Swayambhuva Manu, the original king whose reputation is worthy of description. Please hear as I speak of the flourishing of his daughter Devahūti. Devahuti's lamentation. Maitreya continued, after the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devahūti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. O Vidura, Devahūti served her husband with intimacy and great respect, with control of the senses, with love, and with sweet words. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than Providence. Thus she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Kardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. Kardama Muni continued, I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life of austerity, meditation, and Krishna consciousness. Although you have not yet experienced these achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you because you are engaged in my service. Now, just look at them. I am giving you the transcendental vision to see how nice they are. Kardama Muni continued, what is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? All material achievements are subjected to be annihilated simply by a movement of the eyebrows of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By your principles of devotion to your husband, you have achieved and can enjoy transcendental gifts very rarely obtained by persons proud of aristocracy and material possessions. Upon hearing the speaking of her husband, who excelled in knowledge of all kinds of transcendental science, innocent Devahūti was very satisfied. Her smiling face shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of great humility and love.
Thank you, Prabhu. Vishal Prakash Prabhu, you can go till verse 33.
Sri Devahūti said, My dear husband, O best of Brahmanas, I know that you have achieved perfection and are the master of all the infallible mystic powers, because you are under the protection of Yogamaya, the transcendental nature. But you once made a promise that our bodily union should now fulfill, since children are a great quality for a chaste woman who has a glorious husband. Devahūti continued, My dear Lord, I am struck by excited emotion for you. Therefore, kindly make what arrangements must be made according to the scriptures so that my skinny body, emaciated through unsatisfied passion, may be rendered fit for you. Also, my lord, please think of a suitable house for this purpose. Maitreya continued, O Vidura, seeking the please of seeking to please his beloved wife, the sage Kardama exercised his yogic power and instantly produced an aerial mansion that could travel at his will. It was a wonderful structure, bedecked with all sorts of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones, and capable of yielding whatever one desired. It was equipped with every form of furniture and wealth, which tended to increase in the course of time. The castle was fully equipped with all necessary necessary paraphernalia, and it was pleasing in all seasons. It was decorated all around with flags, festoons, and artistic work of variegated colors. It was further embellished with wreaths of charming flowers that attracted sweetly humming bees, and with tapestries of linen, silk, and various other fabrics. The palace looked charming, with beds, couches, fans, and seats, all separately arranged in 7 stories. Its beauty was enhanced by artistic engravings here and there on the walls. The floor was of emerald with coral daisies. The palace was very beautiful, with its coral thresholds at the entrances and its doors bedecked with diamonds. Gold pinnacles crowned its domes of sapphire. With the choicest rubies set in its diamond walls, it appeared as though possessed of eyes. It was furnished with wonderful canopies and greatly valuable gates of gold. Here and there in that place were multitudes of live swans and pigeons, as well as artificial swans and pigeons so lifelike that the real swans rose above them again and again, thinking them live birds like themselves. Thus, the palace vibrated with the sound of these birds. The castle had pleasure grounds, resting chambers, bedrooms, and inner and outer yards designed with an eye to comfort. All this caused astonishment to the sage himself. When he saw Devahūti looking at the gigantic opulent palace with a displeased heart, Kardama Muni could understand her feelings because he could study the heart of anyone. Thus, he personally addressed his wife as follows: My dear Devahūti, you look very much afraid. First bathe in Lake Bindu Sarovar, created by Lord Vishnu himself, which can grant all the desires of a human being, and then mount this airplane. The lotus-eyed Devahūti accepted the order of her husband. Because of her dirty dress and the locks of matted hair on her head, she did not look very attractive. Her body was coated with a thick layer of dirt, and her breasts were discolored. She dove, however, into the lake, which contained the sacred waters of the Saraswati. In a house inside the lake, she saw 1,000 girls, all in the prime of youth and fragrant like lotuses. Seeing her, the damsels suddenly rose and said with folded hands, We are your maidservants. Tell us what we can do for you. The girls, being very respectful to Devahūti, brought her forth, and after bathing her with valuable oils and ointments, they gave her fine, new, spotless cloth to cover her body. They then decorated her with very excellent and valuable jewels, which shone brightly. Next, they offered her food containing all good qualities and a sweet, inebriating drink called asavam. Then, in a mirror, she beheld her own reflection. Her body was completely freed from all dirt, and she was adorned with a garland. Dressed in unsullied robes and decorated with auspicious marks of tilak, she was served very respectfully by the maids. Her entire body, including her head, was completely bathed, and she was decorated all over with ornaments. She wore a special necklace with a locket. There were bangles on her wrist and tinkling anklets of gold about her ankles. About her hips, she wore a girdle of gold set with numerous jewels, and she was further adorned with a precious pearl necklace and auspicious substances. Her countenance shone with beautiful teeth and charming eyebrows. Her eyes, distinguished by lovely moist corners, defeated the beauty of lotus buds. Her face was surrounded by dark curling tresses. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone wants to go? When she thought of her great husband, the best of the sages, Kardama Muni, who was very dear to her, she, yes, Nitya Mataji, you can complete the chapter, Mataji.
Okay. When she thought of her great husband, the best of the sages, Kardama Muni, who was very dear to her. She along with all the maid servants at once appeared where he was. She was amazed to find herself surrounded by 1,000 maids in the presence of her husband and to witness his yogic power. The sage could see that had washed herself clean and was shining forth as though no longer his former wife. She had regained her own original beauty as the daughter of a prince. Dressed in excellent robes, her charming breasts duly girded, she was waited upon 1,000 Gandharva girls. O destroyer of the enemy! His fondness for her grew, and he placed her on the aerial mansion. Though seemingly attached to his beloved consort, while served by the Gandharva girls, the sage did not lose his glory, which was mastery over his self. In the aerial mansion, Kardama Muni, with his consort, shone as charmingly as the moon in the midst of the stars in the sky, which causes rows of lilies to open in ponds at night. In that aerial mansion, he traveled to the pleasure valleys of Mount Meru, which were rendered all the more beautiful by cool, gentle, fragrant breezes that stimulated passion. In these valleys, the treasure of the gods, Kuvera, surrounded by beautiful women and praised by the Siddhas, generally enjoys pleasure. Kardama Muni, also surrounded by the beautiful damsels and his wife, went there and enjoyed for many, many years. Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed that in that aerial mansion, not only on Mount Meru, but in different gardens known as Vaishrambaka, Surasana, Nandana, Pushpabhadraka, and Chaitratya, and by the Manasa Sarovara lake. He traveled in that way through the various planets as the air passes uncontrolled in every direction. Coursing through air in that great and splendid aerial mansion, which could fly at his will, he surpassed even the demigods. What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the supreme personality of God at his lotus feet? His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life. After showing his wife the globe of the universe and its different arrangements, full of many wonders, the great yogi Kardama Muni returned to his own hermitage. After coming back to his hermitage, he divided himself into 9 personalities just to give pleasure to Devahūti, the daughter of Manu, who was eager for sex life. In that way, he enjoyed her with her for many, many years, which passed like just like a moment. In that aerial mansion, Devahūti, in the company of her handsome husband, situated on an excellent bed that increased sexual desires, could not realize how much time was passing. While the couple who eagerly longed for sexual pleasure were thus enjoying in themselves by virtue of mystic powers, 100 autumns passed like a brief span of time. The powerful Kardama Muni was the knower of everyone's heart, and he could grant whatever one desired. Knowing the spiritual soul, he regarded her as half of his body. Dividing himself into 9 forms, he impregnated Devahūti with 9 discharges of semen. Immediately afterward, on the same day, Devahūti gave birth to 9 female children, all charming in every limb and fragrant with the scent of the red lotus flower. When she saw her husband about to leave home, she smiled externally, but at heart she was agitated and distressed. She stood and scratched the ground with her foot, which was radiant with the luster of her gem like nails. Her head bent down. She spoke in a slow yet charming accents, suppressing her tears. Sri Devahūti said, "My lord, you have fulfilled all the promises you gave me. Yet, because I am your surrendered soul, you should give me a fearlessness too. My dear Brahmana, as far as your daughters are concerned, they will find their own suitable husbands and go away to their respective homes. But who will give me solace after your departure as a sannyasi? Until now, we have simply wasted so much of our time in sense gratification, neglecting to cultivate knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Not knowing your transcendental situation, I have loved you while remaining attached to the objects of the senses. Nonetheless, let the affinity I have developed for you rid me of all fear. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performance do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be considered dead, although he is breathing. My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from the material bondage, I did not seek such liberation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, dear readers. Quick prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So thank you again, dear readers. Let's begin. You can all see my screen, right? Okay, now it must have gone. Just one sec. Okay, I'll just keep it like this, not overcomplicated. Yeah, so a very nice chapter actually. I mean, nice 2 chapters. Lot of description about many things, and yeah, so many themes come out in these chapters. But yeah, I mean, Prabhupada also writes about. So there is no like one big theme that came out from all these verses, although we could extract out. But Prabhupada went deep into each and every small verse, and then he dug deep into those concepts and those spiritual practices, so to say. So I was thinking, Prabhupada writes in one. So in one of the purports here. So initially, in this 22nd chapter, as we read, we saw how Swayambhuva Manu humbly approached Kardama Muni, right? So Prabhupada took out the principle of how we should humbly approach the saintly persons in our lives, our gurus and Vaishnavas and so on. So here Prabhupada writes one thing about, how meeting a saintly person, even for a moment, can transform one's life. So here he writes, somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves this favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. In our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and on the first sight, he requested this humble self to preach his message in the Western countries. There was no preparation for this, but somehow or other he desired it, and by his grace we are now engaged in executing his order, which has given us a transcendental occupation and has saved and liberated us from the occupation of material activities. So now this is important. Thus it is actually a fact that if one meets a saintly person completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves this favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there is an opportunity to meet a saintly person. So just a reminder that we can try as much as possible to associate with saintly people, saintly devotees whenever they visit our local temples, and it's a lesson for me also. But in any case, with that gratitude to all the saintly devotees in our life, in one of the further purports, actually, Prabhupada writes something really beautiful. He writes that actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is preaching. He says he is currently preaching all over the world through his qualified disciples, is what he says. So just shows how Prabhupada always kept his Guru Maharaj in the center and he had no sense of doership in whatever he did. So, but anyway, so yeah, so in this section, Prabhupada talks about how we should approach saintly personalities, and that's how Manu approached Kardama Muni in the first set of few verses where Manu has glorified Kardama Muni for his saintly qualities, and then he is putting forth this proposition that I have my daughter Devahūti, who is endowed with many wonderful qualities, and she desires to marry you. So Devahūti apparently heard from some sage about Kardama Muni's glories, and then at once she fell in love with him, and that's why Manu wants her to get married to Kardama Muni, right? And here again, one thing that Prabhupada writes is he writes about this combination that makes life successful. So he writes this combination, the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple makes the entire process perfect. And then Prabhupada goes on to quote this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana, Bahushakaya anantasya buddhayo vyavasayinam. Right? So one who wants to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from the spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and should consider that his life and soul. So it is very interesting that this particular purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this Vyavasayatmika Buddhir verse actually inspired Prabhupada to really take up the mission of spreading the message of Mahaprabhu in the Western world. So it really grew stronger because that's what his guru had also instructed him to do. So when he read this purport on this verse by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that's when his resolve became very, very strong, right? So that is one thing that happens, and then we see how Kardama Muni also agrees that yes, I will marry your daughter, no worries, and they get married also. So and in many of these purports, Prabhupada goes a lot into information like different types of sannyas, different types of marriages, different marriages where the husband kidnaps the wife, marriages where the one where we are talking about where the father of the bride takes that offer to the bridegroom and things like that. And then different types of brahmacharya also. There are two types of brahmacharya that Prabhupada talks about, which I would like to say. So there are two types of brahmacharya. One is Naishthika brahmachari. A Naishthika brahmachari is a lifelong celibate, and they never marry. And then we have also such devotees in the movement today. And then there is the other type of brahmacharya, which is called Upakurvan. Upakurvan brahmachari is a brahmachari for a certain period of time, after which, with the permission of the guru, with the blessings of the guru, they take to Grihasthashram. So why I remembered this is because many years ago in Pune temple, they were going to start this Upakurvan Sabha. So there was Gauranga Sabha for those students who were aspiring to be brahmacharis. There was Nityanand Sabha for those students who were aspiring to be grihasthas. And they were going to start this Upakurvan Sabha. So what this Upakurvan Sabha was is exactly what the Kardama Muni is doing. So this devotees who want to get into this Upakurvan Sabha, they would have to leave everything, leave home and everything, leave their occupational duty and whatnot, and live like an actual brahmachari, like we have, like Gaur Sharan Prabhu or Sundarnath, like totally dedicated to the Lord, living in the temple and all that. And then they do that for 1 or 2 years or whatever, and then they get married. But then it never worked out because of the whole financial aspect around that. Because someone who is like, for people like most of us who are working jobs, we can't leave the job or take like a sabbatical for a year or two and then be an Upakurvan brahmachari and then come back and get married. So that never really panned out. But anyway, that's an interesting side fact that I knew. So one of the things that happens here, and I want to go back to that verse actually. So this verse, and I want to open this up for discussion. Sharira manasa divya vayase ye cha manushaha bhautikascha katham klesha badhante hari samshrayam. So the translation goes like this: Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of the of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, mind, nature, and other men and living creatures? So this is a question for all of us as well, right? How can, so of course, Maitreya is asking this question to Vidura as a rhetorical question. So how can persons completely under the shelter of the Lord Krishna be put into all these miseries, right? So he's trying to hint that they can't be put into such miseries. But if we see our own life, if we see life of, various devotees around us, we see that yes, there are certain miseries that are going on pertaining to the body, mind, nature, and other living entities and whatnot. We see this Ukrainian devotees, they are going through a lot of misery because of this crazy government and the war and whatnot. And then natural calamities and the mind, the body, even devotees fall ill. So how do we understand this statement is where I want to open it up a little for discussion. Or even another question could be, what really stands out for you in this verse? Yes, anyone? So, yeah, okay. Before I get into it, anyone wants to chime in here? What stands out in this verse for you?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
It's very interesting that Vidura is being asked because he has also seen Pandavas going through the same.
Hmm.
Very interestingly, I think he's the right person to be asked about this,
Yeah,
like first-hand experience he has seen.
correct, correct. Yeah, Pandavas were in complete shelter of under the complete shelter of Lord Krishna, but still they were, yeah. So how do we understand this, dear devotees? One way, of course, I guess, to understand this is that although externally devotees may be going through these miseries, right? But then they are still internally not affected by these things. Is that an accurate thing to say?
Also, they remember the Lord, like in both the situations.
Yeah, yeah,
Like for me, I won't remember during the misery, or maybe if there is too much excitement, I might easily forget in either extreme. But
Hmm.
the devotees of the Lord, irrespective of the extreme, they always remember the Lord.
Correct, correct. Yeah, that the remembrance of the Lord is one thing that is constant for a pure devotee, right? So constant that Kunti Maharani is praying for miseries. She's saying that, please give me miseries, dear Krishna. These miseries, because when I get miseries, I get to remember you, and when I get to remember you, you are there to save us. So that's why I want miseries. So yeah,
And also, the pain is there, right? It's not that they are not going through the pain.
yeah,
The miseries are there, the pain to their body is there, the mind is also burns, and all those things they actually go through it.
correct.
It's not that externally they are just going through it, they actually go through it. But of
Yes.
course, I think within the heart, as a super soul.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, Prabhu. It's not that they are putting up a show that, yeah, अंदर सब अच्छा है, but it's just, this is paining. Yeah. They are actually going through it, definitely. They're actually going through it. Yeah. Even actually, to say that they are not feeling that pain in one sense, actually, if we think about it, to say that they may not be going through that pain at all is actually removing some sort of personhood from them, because they are also persons, they humans, and they go through the frailties of human body. So yes, they actually experience the miseries, as you mentioned. So they actually experience the pains that are involved.
Yeah, I just want to share one more thing. So I
Yes.
heard this, as we all know, that Krishna was born to Devaki and
Hmm.
also to Mother Yashoda.
Yes.
So when Vasudev, he took Krishna, so both the Krishnas merged, right? And
Yeah.
he brought back Maya, Yoga Maya.
Hmm.
So when Akrura came, right, at the Akrura Ghat, so at that time I heard that so Devki Krishna from there on went to Mathura, and Gokul Krishna, he entered in the hearts of each Vrajvasis. And that's why in the extreme separation, externally were having so much pain, they felt really close to Krishna. It like peaked the ecstasy of love in separation.
Hmm.
So maybe like in misery, when they are remembering Krishna, I don't know if Krishna is reciprocating within the heart or.
That's a beautiful point, Prabhu. That is such a beautiful point. Thank you for bringing that example also of how, the Devki Krishna, he leaves. And then, yeah, I've also heard this in some classes that that time Devki Krishna, because it is this thing, right? Krishna never leaves Golok Vrindavan, like never even for a moment he leaves Golok Vrindavan or Vrindavan, so to say. So yeah, maybe when devotees are in misery, the Lord in the heart is reciprocating 100%. Yeah. Yes, dear devotees, any other thoughts on this? Okay. So thank you, Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu. Let's move on, dear devotees. So one thing that Prabhupada talks about, and the verses also talk about in the Swayambhuva Manu, he gives his daughter in marriage to uh, Kardama Muni, and then he returns to his palace. And then it is described, his lifestyle is actually described in these verses, in the last few verses of this chapter, of the 22nd chapter. And then Swayambhuva Manu was a very great Krishna conscious leader, actually. And some of the things they are described here. And Prabhupada also, he says that we should actually take an example from Manu, because it is described that Manu, he would in the morning he would hear the katha, the glorification of the Lord, and then he would perform his ritualistic ceremonies. And an interesting fact is mentioned there that when Varahadev appeared and he killed Hiranyaksha, after that, like just like how as animals, they kind of move their body just to what you call it, to drive away the perspiration or whatever. You must have seen animals do that, dogs for example sometimes. Similarly, the Lord who came in the form of a boar, he also did that. He kind of jhatka dena kind of a thing to just rid himself of whatever was there. And then in that process, some of his hair actually fell on the ground, and then that became kusha grass. So we often hear about kusha grass, right? Kusha grass is used in sacred ceremonies, and what even Krishna says in the sixth chapter of the Gita, that you lay kusha grass, sit on that, and perform austerity and whatnot, dhyana yoga. So like that. So Swayambhu Manu sits on the kusha grass and he worships the Lord, and then he hears the glories of the Lord and whatnot. So he is the father of mankind. He has supreme opulences, but he is like the Krishna conscious example of how a householder with so much wealth should live, right? So here, Prabhupada writes in a purport that those who are in a better position in the world, having sufficient wealth, should especially take lessons from Manu, who acknowledged his kingdom and opulence to be gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus always engaged in devotional service. Similarly, the descendants of Manu, or human beings, especially those who are situated in a well-to-do condition, must consider that whatever riches they have are gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is again a very nice way, like we always say, we always even preach this to students and devotees, that oh, whatever you have, you should be grateful, and you should take this as a gift from God. So this is where Prabhupada specifically categorically mentions about these things. So and here he writes, no one can achieve wealth, opulence, good birth, and a beautiful body or nice education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, those who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness to the Lord by worshipping Him and offering what they have received from Him. When such acknowledgement is given either by a family, nation, or that their abode becomes like Vaikuntha, free from the threefold miseries of the material world. So I was thinking a few days ago, like there is this apparent paradox in Krishna conscious concept, so to say, right? So you have on one end Krishna, who is saying in the Bhagavad Gita that those who don't complete this process of Krishna consciousness perfectly in one life, what are they given in their next life? Anyone? What facilities are they given in their next life? Krishna says in the Gita. Or what happens to them?
Born in a wealthy family or in a pious family?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. So Krishna is saying they are either born in a very rich aristocratic family, or they are born in a family of advanced transcendentalists. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yogo Bhrashto Vijayate. Right. So Krishna is saying that he awards this to one who advances to a point in bhakti, and then but doesn't complete it. Right. So, in essence, Krishna is saying, I will give this person who has left the process incomplete. What I'll give him? I'll give him maybe wealth. I'll give him maybe a very good birth, right? A very high birth in an aristocratic family or in a family of great transcendentalists. Like so, Krishna is essentially saying wealth and high birth, right? He gives. Now, on the other hand, you have Kunti Maharani who says that Janmaishwari Shruta Shribir Edamana Madhapuman, right? She's saying that actually these things are disqualifications in the in your journey to Krishna. What Janma, high birth, Aishwarya, opulence, Shruta, great education, Shribhir, great beauty. Kunti Maharani is saying these are obstacles in the service of the Lord, right? So there is this apparent paradox, right? So Krishna is saying, I'll give these things to you if you don't complete the process. And on the other hand, Kunti Maharani is saying that these are actually, these are obstacles to bhakti. So how should we understand this paradox? Here also Prabhupada is writing that no one can achieve wealth, opulence, good birth, beautiful body, or nice education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Right? So is it that the mercy of the Supreme Lord ends up becoming an obstacle to further attaining the mercy of the Supreme Lord, as Kunti Maharani is saying? So how do we resolve this paradox? Any ideas?
It's in the very next sentence, I guess.
Yeah,
Therefore, who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness by worshipping.
right.
Yeah. So by
Yes,
being grateful or showing gratitude, and just understanding our position in terms of how we don't deserve it. It's a mercy of the Lord that through which we got whatever opulence that we are enjoying here,
yeah,
and knowing that any moment that can go away or be reinstated, whatever
correct.
it may be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very true. So it's like I think of it this way, right? So a jiva, he completes the process of bhakti to a point, right? And then it's like a junction there, right? And a jiva completes the process, and then Krishna gives him a high birth, whatever aristocratic birth, rich birth, whatnot. Now at that point, it's a junction, right? A junction where the disposition is seen, right? A dispositional junction, you can say, where so it's like a fork. One path, which is the path of humility and gratitude, which is being talked about here, right? That is one path. If that jiva has humility and gratitude, then what Krishna had intended for the jiva happens, where the jiva goes closer to Krishna and completes and perfects the process. And then the other part of the fork, the other path that the jiva could take is the jiva can become enamored by these things, right? And then if the jiva is enamored by these things, what does Krishna do? punarmushika bhava, right? Go back to you need more purification, is what Krishna will say, and then that happens. So yeah, yes, Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu.
Yeah, so I was thinking, this is very tricky because that um, given high birth or in a pious family, especially in today's time, it's very tricky to, I can speak of these things, that be grateful and all those, because now I have read about it. But maybe 10 years ago, if someone would have said this to me, I wouldn't have paid any heed to it. But
True.
is it like Krishna gives these things, but he also makes sure that there is some kick that is given in the life to remind us, because there is no memory coming from previous life, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Prabhu. I do think that Krishna gives kick, and he gives a kick, and then even in that kick there is that choice, right? If we try to, when we get the kick, if the jiva that takes shelter of that, all these things, opulence, good birth, and etc., shelter of these things, then that is not that doesn't take him to where he needs to be. But on the other hand, if that samskara from his previous spiritual advancement kicks in, and through that kick given by Krishna, he takes shelter of Krishna on the other hand, then definitely that's there. But yeah, it's a very tricky situation, especially in today's world. It's a very tricky situation that when all these things are there, what really happens? So it's a very personal choice, and yeah, even when all the samskaras are there, these things are so enamoring in some sense. Even for me, I mean, I've read all these things over the years and all that, but still there is this enamor. What is that thing? That noun I forgot. That attraction that's there to wealth or opulence or things like that. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. So, but I do feel Krishna gives kicks to remind us. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Very nice point actually brought by Vallabh
Lekha
Chaitanya.
has something on her chat.
Sorry, oh, Lekha Mataji. As long as we are cognizant of our position and disposition. Yeah. Would you like to elaborate on that, Mataji?
Oh, Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhuji sir. This was actually the answer for the aristocratic family. Like I think Nitya Mataji actually like answered that pretty well.
Yeah.
This is like then this is a question for what Kunti Maharani, the conflict between Kunti Maharani's statement and how Krishna helps us finish our spiritual life, our spiritual practices here. Um, uh, I was also just reflecting upon like sometimes and lately, because now that this is exactly what Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu said, like we don't. If someone told this to me years ago, I'd be like, okay, like this is unbelievable. Whereas now, you actually like we keep reading about it and hearing about it, and also like to an extent experience it. But because of the habitual mindset that we have and all the past like layers of like ignorance, it actually may sometimes there have been days where I wondered like why did I even get into this stuff? Like why do I was just minding my own business, and now I know about this but I'm not able to practice it. So there is a large gap, and then now I'm like, okay, how am I going to address this? How am I going to bridge this gap? It definitely gets very tricky, and um some days we are like, okay, you know what, of course we have Krishna on our side, so he's going to help us get through it. But some days it does get very, very overwhelming. This is just like an observation, and that I've been making about myself, and I'm like, okay, I should, have a way out. Like I should not let lose my grip on this because of these like overbearing thoughts. Like I should somehow have a way out. So it's been it's definitely very tricky, and I just wanted to like share
Yes.
this and see if you guys have any way to like swift through this. It's usually in phases, but when the phase is low, it's really hard.
No, that's very true, Mataji. Thank you for being candid. And yeah, I guess one a sure short thing that we could do is keep reminding ourselves that there is something more to life, and not be overwhelmed. And I mean, we will still be overwhelmed, but at least in the background of our minds, we have that, okay, yeah, this will pass, this will pass. This too shall pass, they say, right? So yeah, but
Yeah.
it's easier said than done. I can say this sitting in a cozy chair, you know, in a nice heated bedroom and whatnot. But yeah, when we are actually in it, it is a tough one for sure. So, and it also depends a lot on how we have cultivated ourselves. One devotee used to tell us that when we were in college and just new to Krishna consciousness, things are very rosy, rosy. So he
Mm.
had said that now that things are very rosy, you don't just coast along in this process. Take very intense shelter. Just because
Mm.
everything, all the facilities are being given to you for practicing bhakti, don't think that you can just coast along and relax and take it easy. You should still be very intense in your consciousness, or intense in terms of taking shelter of Krishna, so that when actual tough times will come, actual overwhelming situations will come, which they will come, because this is
Mm.
the material world. No one is spared from that. The richest of the richest people, the best of the best people will be faced with overwhelming situations. If somebody is saying that you won't be faced with any overwhelming situations in life, then they are actually just bluffing, I would say, if any
Mm.
spiritualist says that. So everybody will be faced with overwhelming situations, and this devotee was telling us that take shelter of the Lord now when things are good, so that when things go bad, you will have
Mm.
that consciousness
Mm.
in you, that practice in you, that
Mm.
then you will
Mm.
automatically turn to Krishna as much as you can. So that is one thing I would say. Anyone wants to add?
Yeah.
Your
Hare,
devotees.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. And
Yes.
that's, one more thing I'll just add to this, which is it's so, Maya is so tricky that in the beginning you will, like you said, life will look very rosy,
Mhm.
and then it'll try to, it'll deviate us from taking shelter. And later, that same Maya will itself will give us, some distress and sorrows,
Yeah.
and 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 in a way test us to about our resolve.
Yeah.
So in both ends seem to be are very tricky and are almost designed to make us lose faith.
Yeah.
So it's very yeah. I just thought just by listening to you, all of you talk, I just got this,
Mm.
and obviously the solution is also in this paragraph that you're sharing here,
Mm.
that when there are riches, the riches have to be utilized in the service of the Lord and sacrifices performed to please Him.
Yeah.
So even in the Bible, I believe that it is written that any riches that we have to see ourselves as just trustees of that of the wealth, and not as owners of the wealth.
Yeah.
And so that might be the that's the eventual solution, that if you look at the lives of some of the kings, um, they led their lives, not all of them, but some of them, they led their lives in sincere devotion uh, to uh, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while
Hmm.
always remembering that they are but servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are here only to, they have the position only to, to fulfill their duties. I'm thinking of the kings of Kerala, of Trivandrum, and in fact, they also have, interestingly, they also have Das in their names,
Hmm.
and so yeah, they're just a reflection, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Very interesting, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, so many kings, they were of that caretaker mentality, that I am a caretaker. And yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for all the reflections. So then the story continues, right? The story continues, and Manu is described. Manu's lifestyle is described, which is very Krishna conscious, and sets an example. Prabhupada said we should actually take lessons. Here also he's saying should especially take lessons from Manu, who acknowledged his opulence and kingdom to be gifts from the Lord. So now this chapter ends, and we move to the next chapter, 23rd chapter, wherein Devahūti's dutiful acts towards her husband have been described. And this is actually taken by many devotees as the ideal grihasthashram, especially in terms of the duties of a wife for a husband, right? And so many things are given, and the descriptions are very, very detailed, in the sense that how a wife should serve the husband in all circumstances very dutifully, speak very sweet words. There is this very nice purport, Vishrambhena and Gauravena, Prabhupada writes. So yeah, Devahūti served her husband in two ways, Vishrambhena and Gauravena. These are two important processes in serving the husband or the Lord. Vishrambhena means with intimacy, and Gauravena means with great reverence. The husband is a very intimate friend, therefore the wife must render service just like an intimate friend. And at the same time, she must understand that the husband is superior in position, and thus she must offer him all respect. So Prabhupada writes a lot here actually. He says many things which could also be seen as controversial actually in today's egalitarian world. So one of the things that Prabhupada writes, which is very, very sensitive, which I wanted to bring up here also. I mean, I agree that based on the psychophysical natures and whatever, the wife should serve the husband. And of course, there are duties of a husband also. It's not that there are no duties for a husband. Those are also given in the Shastra, right? But in this particular section, it talks about how Devahūti served Kardama Muni. So how a wife should serve her husband, right? And so many details. And I was actually reading this out loud in front of Aishwarya, and actually she said that no, Devahuti's husband was Kardama Muni. He was a great personality. That's why it behooves her to do that, right? But in any case, that caused a little bit of tiff between me and her today. But in any case, that aside, this is something that I wanted to discuss, right? An ideal marriage. And Prabhupada writes here that even so, this is very, I don't know, I want to discuss this specifically. Even if there is some wrong on the part of the husband, the wife must tolerate it, and thus there will be no misunderstanding between husband and wife. So this is something I was really contemplating on this, and this seems like it's very unfair to the Mataji. Even if there is some wrong on the part of the husband, the wife must tolerate it. I mean, come on, right? So, and then there is the other thing also, that we are seeing this example of a very submissive wife. There are other examples where the wife was very, like Draupadi, she's considered as one of the very ideal wives. What is that? Sita, Tara, Mandodari. There are 5 Panchakanya, which my mother used to chant their names. Ahilya, Draupadi, Sita, Tara, Mandodari. Right? These 5 are considered as like very examples of Kanya, or ideal women. So in these also, like Draupadi, she actually chastises her husband, right? Yudhishthir. Yeah, you don't have any sense. You just gambled away everything. What did you do? And then she's actually chastising him. And then even Mandodari, we see that she's actually giving good counsel to to not the Lord, to Ravana, her husband. She's telling her that I am so beautiful. Why do you want, you have so many other wives and maidens. Why do you want this Sita so badly, right? Just give her up. Don't think about her. Just be happy with what you have. She's trying to give him counsel, right? And yeah, so I was just thinking, how do we understand this statement? Even if there is some wrong on the part of the husband, the wife must tolerate it. So, any ideas? There are accomplished grihasthas here, so I want to understand from them also. Because at least on, if I have to say personally, if there is something wrong on my part, then I would want my wife to actually tell it to me. I would want my wife to point it out and course correct, rather than just tolerate it.
How do
So,
you understand wrong, Prabhuji? And what do you feel wrong is this? Maybe we can start there.
that's a good question. What is wrong? For example, maybe one wrong could be that the husband is maybe becoming slack in spiritual practice. Okay, as Krishna conscious, as aspiring Krishna conscious devotees, that is one thing that could be wrong. The husband is becoming slack in Krishna conscious practice. Now, does the wife just observe it and say it's okay and just go along? Right. I don't think the wife should do that. So,
Prabhuji, I feel wrong is a spectrum.
Hmm.
And it can go right from having a minor flaw to being unfaithful.
Yeah,
There's a large spectrum in wrong.
right.
So maybe maybe we should read this in the context what because there are other places that where how do we, I think we have to think about how what Srila Prabhupada had. Maybe you have to read a little bit more to see what was his intention when he said wrong. And
Yeah, I mean, we could read the context, but the context could worsen the
they could,
situation.
it could, yeah, it could.
But
Okay,
anyway,
okay,
Nityamata,
I'll
yeah.
just share a perspective. I'll just share a perspective, which is the ability of a woman to tolerate is greater than a man's ability, and that may be one of the reasons why this sentence is written.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Just one perspective. Obviously there can be many.
Yes. I mean, yeah, that is true in one sense, I would say. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a virtue. It's a virtue that women have, and men in many cases lack it. So tolerance in one sense, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu, you want to say something, and then we'll have Nitya Mataji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. Prabhupada is saying if there is some wrong, it's not like all wrong, or because if you see in today's time, it has become really opposite. That I know personally some examples where parents, they tell their daughters especially that you must not tolerate anything. If something wrong happens, just come back, and we are we'll take care of you, this and that. And I've
Mm,
seen this actually as an example where the tolerance is so low that it has eventually ended up in separation.
mm,
Whereas in earlier times, of course, considering some wrong, not like extreme cases,
mm,
when there was tolerance, then if we see the divorces, all those were very like stigmatized and taboo. But in today's time, it has become very opposite because the tolerance is no more there. It has, and with these divorces, the situation has become even more bad for both
mm,
the people, like husband and the wife also, because
yeah.
both have like no ashram to take shelter of anymore. Of course,
Yes.
unless there is like proper case and they find a better partner again. But I really I can see examples in today's time which are like not following this, and I mean from both sides. Even
Mm,
husband is not able to tolerate or wife is not able to tolerate.
yeah. Very nice points, Prabhu, for sure. Yeah. Um, yes, Nitya Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, it's very important to understand, this thing. Like Krishnan Prabhu said, the wrong is a spectrum.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't think we should like interpret this tolerate, like I think Lekha is also saying the same thing. Interpret this tolerate as, okay, don't ask anything, or don't correct, or don't uh you know just keep your mouth shut, like something like that.
Mm,
Maybe it was true in uh maybe 3 or 4 decades ago, uh
mm,
but um definitely tolerance is a virtue, and tolerance um, definitely has its payback in terms of sustaining the relationship, and through various ups and downs. And um, the thing is, at what point do we tolerate, right? That scale has been just shifting. um, but like Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu said, yeah, if there is zero tolerance, then the tendency is to break. um,
right.
yeah, definitely tolerance is needed, in my opinion. And but the thing is that it doesn't mean that um, the spouse should keep quiet. I think I me and GKP, we always are uh, of this opinion, is that they both, the husband and wife, must complement each other. If the husband goes wrong, then the wife, whatever, husband or wife, the other spouse must kind of course correct a little bit, but at the same time, it's not like making them feel bad. That
Mm,
is where the misunderstanding. So Prabhupada says two things: tolerate, so that there is no misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, um, meaning that not like understanding the need, and of the other person, why they are acting and like that, and then trying to rectify that from the root, rather than, oh, you did this, okay, I'm going to my mom's house. So not
mm,
that is totally misunderstanding and zero tolerance. Whereas the other side will be to course correct and to just tolerate and be in that relationship.
right.
I think those two are, yeah, that's the,
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah. You have to see both the words here, as you said, tolerate and no misunderstanding. So how can that be done?
yeah.
Yeah.
Neither of them say that. I I don't know if there is no reason to, for me at least, to interpret it as, okay, don't ask anything.
Yeah,
Don't say,
for sure.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't think that is the intended meaning also. Uh,
Mm.
uh, and at least in this day and age, definitely um, the husband and wife must complement each other. Otherwise, the scale will tip off.
Mm.
In the sense, like when one of them goes astray in whatever it is, in this um, the virtues and vices, the moral aspects of it, or also on and also the spiritually declining aspects of it also.
Mm.
If any one of them is off, um then it is necessary. I think it's otherwise, what is the difference between roommates and uh and then live, being in a sacred relationship, right? Like a husband and wife. I think there must be some kind of a uh, nudging at this. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'm able to express it properly.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
There has to be a line, I guess. Yeah.
I know. I mean, yeah, the line and also the
Differentiating factor, I mean, not line. Line is a wrong word to say, like a differentiation between roommates and
huh,
uh,
right. I
somebody
mean,
in
and
secret. Yeah.
yeah, and also like if but the thing is, you can keep tolerating, but if you know that okay, we care about that person, we will do something,
Yeah.
right? The the tolerance could also be like, don't care. The
Mm.
other side of tolerance will be like, okay, whatever you do, I don't care because I don't really give anything about you, right? I'm just in this relationship for whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is also there. But the actual thing is understanding why they have done it, and everybody has a need. Every action is behind every action there is a need, and trying to understand that, and um, assuming innocence, that is very important. I think that's what many of our grandparents, like great 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 grandparents have done, is assumed innocence, which
Mm.
worked for them.
Yeah.
um, they said okay, whatever they do, it's fine.
Um,
They know what they are doing and all that. But yeah, in this day and age, I think assuming innocence for us is good, but also going behind and identifying the needs of why, as the spouse is doing certain thing,
yeah.
understanding the need, and then trying to see if we can fulfill that need from some other means, so that this can be course corrected. I think that, yeah.
Very well summarized, Mataji. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah. It looks like Lekha and Maya are, yeah, vibing.
Yeah, I saw Lekha Mataji's messages. Yeah, really nice, Mataji. Interpretation of tolerate might be different. You still correct it, but doesn't mean you sabotage the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Husband and wife are both supposed to walk each other in the path of righteousness. Women are naturally emotionally mature, and hence it gives them the capability to tolerate and course correct. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. You can say most likely.
I would say in most cases as well. Yeah. Yeah. It comes naturally. I do agree. I do agree.
Hmm.
That is why kids they get again. That's a whole different can of worms. I don't want to go there. But kids, they naturally get attached to the mother. They do get attached to the father. I'm not saying they don't, but the initial attachment comes through the mother. So then later on, the mother attaches them to the father. That's a different issue. That's a different thing. That does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but initial is mother. That's why mother, the position of a mother is held so sacred everywhere in the Shastras. Yeah. I mean, it's even a sannyasi actually, even a very orthodox Madhva sannyasi also, they respect their mother. So they might not even see their father, but when they see their mother, they will, they will bow down and offer obeisances, like an orthodox sannyasi. So yeah. In any case, yeah, that's a different discussion. But thank you very much, dear devotees. It's we are 10 minutes over, and I did have some more things. Yeah, the chapter then shows how like Devahūti serves Kardama Muni very nicely, but in the process she gets emaciated, weak, and whatnot. And then Kardama Muni gets compassion for her. Then she expresses her desire to have children, and then Kardama Muni, just by his mystic power, creates that mansion that we see here. And then in that mansion, there are these maid servants who prepare, who nurse kind of, they nurse Devahūti to regain her beauty that was there before, before she got married. And then they have many conjugal delights. They will go all over the universe. And then finally they come back, and then they have 9 daughters, and then after the 9 daughters, Devahūti desires to have a son. So one interesting statement that she makes there is, I'll end with this. This is the second last thing I'll end with. The last thing is this slide. The thing that she says is, until now we have simply, so far we have these daughters and we have enjoyed material life in the aerial mansion, traveling all over the world. These boons have come by your grace, but they have all been for sense gratification. Now there must be something for my spiritual advancement, is what Devahūti is saying, is what Prabhupada writes. So now we have gratified our senses. Now let's talk about spiritual life. So that happens with us also. Like we gratify ourselves in certain ways, and then we feel, okay, now there is some sort of renunciation that comes. Now this is enough. I have done what I wanted to do. Now let's come back to our sadhana. Let's come back to our spiritual life, which is good, which is definitely good. Better than being so absorbed in sense gratification that we completely go away. But anyway, here, this is an interesting verse. I'll end with this, that Devahūti says, one whose work doesn't give rise to religious life, whose religiosity doesn't give rise to renunciation, and whose renunciation doesn't give rise to devotional service is actually a dead person, is what she says. Very interesting verse. A lot can be discussed here. How can work be religiosity? How can religiosity invoke renunciation? And how can renunciation invoke bhakti? But maybe that's for some other day. So thank you, dear devotees. That's all for this discussion. So next discussion is going to be led by Nupur Mataji. And so, yeah, that's all. And if there are there any other announcements? Anyone? I think Gaur Kumar Prabhu left, but yeah. Okay, dear devotees, have a very good night and see you all next Tuesday. Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya